Hello everybody, my name is Quinn and welcome to my channel. So today we are going to be talking about all of the books that I read in the month of August. I ended up completing 7 books in the month of August, which was really great. I didn't work as much at the end of the summer as I did in the beginning of the summer, so I had a lot more time to read, and I enjoyed a lot of the books that I read. I didn't enjoy all of them, but I definitely enjoyed a majority of them, which is so refreshing because I kind of had a rough reading year at the beginning of the year, but it's definitely gotten a lot better. So without further ado, these are all the books that I read in the month of August. So the first book that I read in the month of August was a reread, and that was Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix by J.K. Rowling. Absolutely loved this. 5 out of 5 stars. Clearly, it was just so magical, so childlike, and I just feel so light every time I read this book, which is something I can't say about a lot of other books I read. It's such a feel-good story, and I can't wait to continue rereading this series towards the end of the year. The next book that I picked up was Replica by Lauren Oliver. This book is it's kind of like a sci-fi book about clones. I don't think you should go in knowing any more than that. I didn't really, but this book can be read in 2 different ways. There are 2 different character perspectives, Lyra and Gemma, and you can either read 1 chapter from Lyra, then 1 chapter from Gemma, and kind of alternate that way, or you can read Lyra's story first and then all the way through, and then Gemma's story first all the way through. I didn't end up liking this book as much as I thought I was going to. I think I gave it like a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Because this book is told from 2 different characters' perspectives, you get a lot of repeating of information, and yes, it's cool to see the information repeated in 2 different people's perspectives and seeing how people can witness the same thing and see it completely differently is really interesting. But because of that, I feel like we only got half of a story. I feel like the ending was just anticlimactic. I feel like this is like part 1 to an entire book. I know the sequel is coming out in October, and I do plan on reading it. Probably not right away, but I am interested in seeing where the story goes because the plot was very intriguing and the characters were very enjoyable, but I just felt like there was a little too much repetition. There was a couple of romances that I didn't really feel like needed to be there. I really wanted just more of the plot and less of that romance stuff because the plot was amazing, but it just felt like it could have gone farther if we weren't focusing so much on the romance throughout the entire book. So as I said before, I ended up giving this 3.5 out of 5 stars on a good day. I also thought in this video it would be fun to talk about a book that I DNF'd this month, and this is going to be a very unpopular opinion because a lot of people love this series. That is A Conjuring of Light by V.E. Schwab. I read about half of this in the month of May and just got so bored because it was so slow and nothing was happening, and I feel like there was just a lot happening that could have been cut out. I just really wasn't feeling any of the characters anymore, and I tried getting back into it this month, and it just wasn't happening. It was just too slow. I was just too frustrated with the story, and I was like, I still have another 300 pages to go. I don't think I can finish this. So we're gonna DNF this one, and I probably won't explore this anytime in the future. Then I picked up a contemporary, What I Thought Was True by Huntley Fitzpatrick. This story follows our main character who has grown up in a summer town her whole life. Her family is not poor, but they're not exactly well off. There's 5 of them living in a single family home. She has had experiences with this guy named Cassidy in the past. They were together at one point and now they're not, and you don't really know why, but she keeps running into Cass over the whole summer, and it's sort of her dealing with that. But this book is a lot more than just a summer contemporary. It does deal a lot with family issues, class issues, what is expected of you. I really love all the different topics Huntley Fitzpatrick covers, and that she's not afraid to go into more serious topics in her contemporaries. I wish she just focused more on that and less on the romance. I gave this book 3.5 out of 5 stars because this book does take place in New England, and I thought it did a fantastic job of capturing what it's like to live in New England, because I do, and I live in a summer town, and I just think that I did a fabulous job of conveying that atmosphere. I really loved the family aspect, and her grandfather lives with her, her cousin lives with her, so she has divorced parents, so it's a very non-conventional living situation, which I don't think you see a lot in YA literature. What I didn't like about this book was I honestly didn't really care about the romance. I feel like the reveal of why Cass and her went wrong wasn't that exciting. I really don't know how I feel about how this book portrays sexuality. I don't know if they're trying to say that sexuality is a bad thing or a good thing, and that if you sleep with a lot of people, you're inherently bad for it. I honestly couldn't tell what this book was trying to paint about sexuality, and I think that could be a harmful thing to young girls. So I only gave this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. I would recommend reading it, but just be wary about the depictions about sexuality. Someone's doing yard work outside, so if you hear that, that's what that is. The next book that I read in the month of August, I actually listened to, and that was I Can't Make This Up, Life Lessons with Kevin Hart. I listened to this on Audible. As I said, Kevin Hart narrates it. He's hilarious. I really liked this book. More than I thought I was going to. It really talks about what it takes to make it in Hollywood, and that it's not just you get one big role and, you know, you're famous. You have to continuously work and work hard at your craft and to become relevant and stay relevant, and you always have to be on the grind. And it just really made me realize how much hard work goes into being a celebrity. It was really insane, and how passionate he was about comedy, and how it was his life, and how he dedicated so much of his time and so much of his effort towards it. I think I ended up giving this like 4 or 5 stars. It was really enjoyable, and I would definitely recommend it if you were trying to get into audiobooks, because I think that memoir comedic audiobooks are the way to go if you're trying to get into them. Next, I read a book that was one of my favorite reads of the month, and that was My Lady Jane by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jodi Meadows. I loved this book. I wasn't expecting to, because I don't really like historical fiction, but this was amazing. This book is a total spin on history of the story of Lady Jane Grey, who ruled England for 9 days before she was beheaded. Obviously, this takes a completely magical twist on this. It's magical realism, but I wouldn't say it's like weird magical realism. I've read magical realism that I can't get into, and that's why I was really hesitant to get into this book. But if you're thinking that that's gonna hold you back, don't. It's more fantasy, I would say, than magical realism. It's so good. The characters are so lovable, and you just root for them. The writing is so witty and funny. There's so much royal intrigue, and there's swoon-worthy romances, and I just cannot say enough great things about this book. And I really, really hope that they do more historical retellings of 3 of them, because you couldn't even really tell that 3 separate people wrote this book. It was so seamless. It was so wonderful, and I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. The last fiction book that I read in the month of August was Lord of Shadows by Cassandra Clare. I'd been putting off reading this for so long because I wasn't sure if I wanted to reread Lady Midnight before, but I ended up just watching some book talks, Christine's mine from last year, just to refresh myself, and I think that's definitely a way to go if you are thinking about whether or not you want to reread Lady Midnight. I just watched some book talks and I was fine. I really enjoyed this book. I can't talk a lot about what it's about just because spoilers, because it's the second book in the Dark Art of Isis series. It was so enjoyable. The characters are so complex, and the plot just goes in places that you really don't expect it to, and Cassandra Clare is not afraid to kill characters, and I love that. I hate when authors are just like, well, everyone's gonna be mad at me if I kill a character. It's more realistic if you kill characters. I am really excited to see where the 3rd book in the series goes. I can't believe it doesn't come out to like 2019 or something ridiculous like that, and obviously I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. And the last book that I read in the month of August was The Girls of Atomic City, The Untold Stories of the Women Who Helped Win World War II by Denise Kiernan. I had to read this for my PR class. We're doing a PR project on it. It's all about this town in Oak Ridge, Tennessee that was created for the sole purpose of helping to create the atomic bomb during World War II. It's really interesting because no one in this town knew what they were working on. They all had bits and pieces of information, but no one knew entirely what the project was. I enjoyed this enough. It's sold as kind of a story about, you know, women in World War II, but I don't think that they focused on enough like feminist things, and it was just kind of like the mundane everyday life of these women, which is interesting, but I was expecting more focused stories on women who really helped in this effort, and there was only like 1 or 2 of those. But the whole idea that this place was kept secret and that no one there knew what they were working on for years was kind of incredible. I'm not going to rate this just because it is nonfiction, but I would recommend this if you're interested in World War II. Yeah, so those were all the books that I read in the month of August. Please let me know down below what you read in the month of August, as I would love to know. Please like and subscribe to this video if you haven't already, and I will see you next time. Bye, guys!